Hi everybody, Professor Snart here, just checking in for the end of Unit 6, which was, again, like I'd explained in the previous video announcement, a really simple unit, but one of those kind of core skills or core concepts that we want to learn. So easy but very important. And now we move on to Unit 7, which is the first real kind of formal essay writing assignment for the class. So the first thing to note is that we have a little bit of extra time for this unit. So instead of like a Monday due date turnaround, we're now looking at next Thursday, April 14th, which is only a week, but it maybe, I know it feels like this to me, even though I'm not actually having to do the work. Like a week is like an enormous amount of time all of a sudden, because our pace has been so fast up to this point. So the good news is that we have more time, but you do need to be aware that more time for us is still only that week. So one of the first things that I mention in Unit 7 itself, and I'm just going to click myself into it here, is of course to use that time wisely to make sure that you don't delay getting started because you know you have a little bit of extra time. So it's one of those ironic traps that we can fall into, that if we're given more time, we end up procrastinating more. It's that old adage in reverse, kind of, if you need something done, give it to the busiest person because they're the most likely to like focus and get it done. So anyway, a little bit of extra time for Unit 7, the first essay, but be sure you use that time wisely. So Unit 7 itself then directs you first and foremost to reading through some sample student essays. So these samples or examples are really useful because they kind of immerse you in the style of the essay that we're trying to produce. They're all literary analysis essays. They're relatively formal, kind of college level. They're not perfect, and in fact, the annotations that accompany those essays will draw attention to a couple of points maybe where essays could be improved or certain stylistic things that we actually want to stay away from. But overall, it's a really good way before you get into the writing of your essay to kind of, again, just sort of immerse yourself in that style and language and approach, and so you're feeling a little more comfortable when you're going to produce your essay, so you can kind of begin to see your essay as, you know, it could be one of these sample essays. It sort of fits in that style and tone and that kind of thing. So as far as the essay itself, it's described in pretty good detail here. Relatively straightforward. It's a short essay. I think it's 3 to 4 double-spaced text pages, so that doesn't include the works cited, of course, which is very focused, so you don't need to be covering a lot of material in terms of the content. But here is really the first major assignment where I'm looking for you to show me that you've gotten the major concepts and ideas that we've discussed so far. And I'm not going to kind of review all of those. You can go back through the units, but there's some key ones that are obvious. The whole shape of a paragraph or shape of the essay idea. Basically handling general versus specific statements and integrating those effectively. So for example, if I see a body paragraph of yours that begins with a quotation, that shows me immediately that you're not having understood that the idea that you have to present an idea, kind of a slightly more general statement, a topic sentence for that paragraph, and then support it with details. So if you have those reversed, again, it's really easy for me to see immediately that the student hasn't learned that concept yet. So it's really, like I'd said a couple of times already, it may seem like writing essays is a very sort of personal or subjective experience, but in many ways it's as cut and dry as me looking for, you know, that example from history class where if you're taught that a certain event happened in 1867 and you have to fill that date in on the exam, if you get it wrong, it's wrong, and if you get it right, it's right. So I can see that in terms of the concepts we're trying to apply in your essays in, you know, equally immediately. There's no kind of guesswork on my part. It's fairly obvious. Maybe even more so for the MLA citation stuff. It's really either wrong or right as far as in-text formatting, smoothly integrating quotations, whether it's primary text or secondary text, and then of course formatting the works cited. So I'll give you another example. If I'm reading your essay and I find a quotation that isn't introduced with any sort of phrase, or it's not run in as part of a sentence of yours, it just exists as a sentence on its own, that again shows me that you haven't read carefully, followed the examples, and applied the concepts from the course in this assessment device, the essay that you're writing. So you haven't integrated smoothly or effectively that primary source or secondary source material. So again, kind of keep in mind for yourself that this essay is my opportunity to see whether you, as the student, have learned the kind of concepts that we've covered, the material that we've covered so far. The other thing to note about Unit 7 is even though we've just finished Unit 6 where we're dealing with secondary sources, Unit 7 doesn't require any secondary material. So we're just focused, again, very narrowly and in a very kind of particular way on working with a primary source or a short story that we've read for the class so far. Unit 8 will require you to use a secondary source, so we're getting to that stage. But just be aware that we're really kind of staying focused for Unit 7 on working with just primary material. The prompts here are, again, relatively straightforward as far as exploring an idea excuse me, or a theme in one of the stories. I've actually cautioned against using Sherman Alexie's flight patterns. It's a difficult story to write about, even though it may kind of seem easy on the face of it. But the fundamental problem is that there's really no good secondary material that discusses that story specifically. So you might be able to do the essay for Unit 7, but then you really get stuck for Unit 8 in terms of finding a secondary source. So I'd really caution against using flight patterns for Unit 7, the first essay, and Unit 8, which will be just a revision of excuse me, the first essay that you're writing here. Hopefully everything else is relatively clear. Again, just try to foreground for yourself that this essay is your opportunity to show me that you've understood the material that we've covered, the class content up to this point. So again, handling quotations effectively, obviously all the MLA, the works cited, the in-text citation formatting. Again, this is why beginning this essay by looking at the sample essays can just be a good reminder of kind of, again, the shape of these things, the scope, the tone, the way they sound, the way that authors handle quotations or examples, all of that kind of stuff. So once you've worked through the samples, you may actually find it really a lot easier to transition into writing your own essay, because it feels just like a natural extension of the kind of essay style and language that you're already hopefully become a little bit used to by looking at those samples. Okay, so as always, especially now that we're looking at kind of a major point value assignment here, by all means be in touch if you have any questions or concerns, and I'll certainly be in touch before our next due date, which again is a week away, but use that time wisely. And I'll talk to everybody soon.